pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with roll call. Dave, do you have any questions on the attendance?
Nope.
Moving along, we have an agenda. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the board agenda? Brian?
Nope.
So we have an agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Open forum, rules for open forum. 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take more than a total of 15 minutes. No complaints about individual staff members. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in an open forum. Has anybody signed up, Brian?
Nope.
Does anybody wish to speak? Moving on. The consent agenda. The next item is the consent agenda. Does anyone need anything pulled from the consent agenda?
I had one addition under resignations, number 5. Donna Armstrong, cook assistant, as she's moving to that para position.
Okay. And I am going to abstain from the vote due to, where is it, Brian? Oh, G, the lease for the Hinckley Knights. Does anybody have any questions? So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is the bills. If you have any questions on the bills, please state the page number and the bill or check number. Did anybody have any questions on the bills?
I did have a question. I recall seeing something for $500 for Fisher's lunch on the 27th. Could you just tell me what that was, may have been about, or what that was for?
That's for our new angling class. It was
Okay.
from Zimpro. They donated $500, which is in our Jake Pride, so the kids could go walleye fishing for their new
Perfect.
angling class.
Excellent, thank you.
So the donation went in as an in and then that was the check going out.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. First up is superintendent's report. Brian.
I'll jump down to number 3 to start with. Next month, November, I'll bring the actual sign-up sheet, but just remember we're gonna have our Christmas breakfast for staff on Tuesday, December 22nd. So I'll have that formal sign-up sheet and kind of what we're looking to do and things like that, but just kind of reminder to hold that date. We start as early as 7 a.m. and then it goes till about 9 with cleanup, getting to the bus drivers and delivery up here to Finlayson. The Lions Club is planning back their traditional in-person Halloween party, which will be on Halloween. So MHS will kind of help with that, and but it's kind of back to in-person after the last 2 years of COVID. And the last one I really wanted to talk about is the ESSA report. ESSA stands for Every Student Succeeds Act. That's the federal Every Student Succeed plan. Our Hinckley Elementary School was a targeted school this year in comprehensive, and the reason it's comprehensive is Hinckley Elementary was targeted a few years ago in these areas of special education, our Native American population, and free and reduced. And based on MCA results, there wasn't enough growth. So we're now in the comprehensive plan. Ms. Scullard, myself, Mr. Horbach, working with the state on developing kind of next steps with the school improvement plan. And then just for some clarification, HES is our only school in the district that receives Title I funds. So our other schools, if they had Title I funds, could have also been maybe a school that would have been targeted, but since they don't receive Title I funds, that's why Hinckley Elementary School is specifically the one that's targeted for our district. I know Mr. Horbach has some MCA data, things like that, that we'll dive into a little bit deeper when we get to his report, but we've met with the state twice. We're developing plans. They're working with Mrs. Scullard and her leadership team to kind of develop next steps for the school improvement plan and kind of next steps. Otherwise, any questions for me on anything else in my report?
Any questions for Brian? All right, then we'll move on to the high school principal, Kim.
Good evening, everyone. Just some basic information in my report this month. We have our enrollment numbers, and I have the last 2 years so that you can kind of see where we're at compared to the last 2 years. One thing with the ELC, we're still waiting to hopefully hire another half-time teacher. We're gonna try and do some more recruitment this week so we can get those numbers up, because we have quite a big waiting list for students to go over there. Class sizes, linked in there is the class sizes as of last week, so you can kind of see where we're at with our class sizes. And then, of course, it's homecoming week this week, which is really exciting, so those are the list of the different events. And then I will turn it over to our wonderful student representatives for an update.
Alright, since the first month of school, students are falling into a good schedule, getting used to all their classes, and everyone's excited as today was the first day of homecoming to have a fun week with the festivities. And as for sports, football's going well. We've had a couple rough games, but we're hoping for a good homecoming game.
So cross country is gearing up for meet at Royalton tomorrow. We're excited for that. That's our second to the last regular season meet with sections in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Next week is GRC, so that's the last regular season meet, as I said, and that's in Pine City this year. So we're excited for that one. And the fall play has begun practice. It's called The 39 Steps. It's like a murder mystery comedy, so we're excited about that one. Mrs. Richter is working really hard, and it's really exciting so far. And our performance for that will be the 3rd week in November. And along with senior kind of updates, College Knowledge Month is in October, so we're just kind of learning more about our different opportunities.
Thank you. And then you can kind of just see some just events. We had conferences last Thursday and then tonight. Good turnout with families. I'll get all numbers for you at the next board meeting, so you can kind of see where we're at with numbers of families that have come to conferences. Also, we have Rachel's Challenge coming up on the 24th, so if anybody wants to volunteer, we're still looking for a few more volunteers to come help out with that on the 24th. And that's actually, there's a correction, it's just our 9th grade students, not all. I'll fix that. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Ari and Jordan. Next up is elementary principal report. Bonnie.
Hello. As you can read it, but we're always working on school climate. A lot of the frustrations maybe that are presenting themselves right now comes from the new curriculum and our more 2nd, 3rd grade, our mid-levels, where these kids are coming in with without that foundational skills, the fundamentals that we're learning with the science of reading. So we're really just working with them to figure out how to meet them where they're at, yet keep that rigor, because that's what we're going with, and we really want to use Amplify with Fidelity. So working through some of them, but really the climate seems to be pretty good throughout HES, FES. They're just a loving family, so climate is good here. Just finished up our fundraiser. Today we went with Cherry USA versus Club's Choice this year. The funds will be the same, 4th, 5th, and 6th are raising money for their Wolf Ridge trip. That did get a little bit more expensive this year. and pre-K through fourth will go, or third will go to the pitcher fund to provide different opportunities for the kids. Crossing guards are selling candy bars right now, and that's one weekend in, and they've done very, very well so far, so it's amazing. There's some very generous people out there. All of our benchmarking and fall testing has been completed. We will do our My Sabres test on October 26th. That's where the kids do grades 2nd through 6th. We'll do a kind of a brief overview of how they feel about different scenarios, how they handle frustrations. Is it always, is it never? Not in depth by any means, but gives us a good bird's eye view of kind of their perception of SEL in the school. One of the things that came out of our grade level data meetings was our kindergarten kids, after having a year of science of reading, came in at 73% proficient or at grade level. And we haven't seen those kind of numbers since Leo went to school. Like, it's been a while.
They didn't even have school when I went.
So just very, very impressed, and the math that they're using actually came in at 64%, so well, vice versa it looks like, but very good numbers. Backpack program, we're serving 114 kids this year, which is just amazing, from 35 last year.
That's crazy.
Yes, it is absolutely crazy. And a lot of that has come from teachers kind of exposing families that during workshops or open house. Enrollment, you can see them there. We have 487 at HES, plus we have 15 of the 3-year-old kids right now, and 58 kids at FES with our preschool numbers there. It has stopped fluctuating as much, but we still have enrollments every week. With the enrollments, one of the things I'm working on with Jonathan right now is trying to find out a way to bring a little bit more equality to Hinckley. We're just not equitable with our resources right now from Finlayson to Hinckley. So trying to work on that. I don't know what that's gonna look like in the future, but just so you know that is something that I am addressing. Fresh fruit and vegetable program is back in Hinckley. It will run from October till our funds run out. We get it 4 days a week. It's very, very good. The kids love it. Attendance and truancy, this is something that we addressed pretty hardcore last year. Corinne Schoberg and Laura Gustafson worked over the summer to really put a program together where you can address some of these truant kids. We had just had a family meeting today it went great. So hopefully we're seeing some results of that, the work they put in. Mallory Greenwald is developing a student leadership team, starting with our 6th graders at HES, and then hopefully getting down into our 5th graders, trying to find some leadership skills that they can work on throughout the school. You can see our school-wide goals. This came out loud and clear at our staff meeting, was using Amplify with Fidelity. Our whole staff is on board with that. One thing I'm trying to work with them is make sure that they're keeping their personal goals at their forefront. A lot of them, when they turned in their personal goals, was leave at least 3 times on time. That's not happening yet, so I wanna make sure that they're taking care of themselves as well. And we're doing a great job with our common language and expectations throughout the building, so. Other updates, we now have a 3rd and possibly a 4th mental health provider in our building. They're kind of rotating through that one office room that we have there left. That is the last space we have. I think we've at the family today 128 referrals so far. So it's a need, and we're addressing them, and we're able to address them. Fire safety this week, K2 taking trips over to the fire hall today. I'm working with the University of Minnesota Extension to bring in smarter lunchroom. We did an audit in Hinckley, the elementary, the other day, just to kind of see where we can improve, provide different opportunities for kids to have healthier choices. We don't have a lot of space there, so looking at what that can look like at no cost for us. And then Brian talked about the Lions Club party coming up. other than that, elementary's going well.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Bonnie?
I got one on the backpack. How you doing funding wise on that with that many more people?
We'd have to talk to Ryan Redfield, but I haven't heard of any needs as of yet. I
Okay.
think we had a pretty good balance there,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
I can check into that though, Leo.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Next up is food service report. Sarah.
Good evening, everyone. So this year we've had a few new hires. We hired Becky Brown at the high school as the main cook. She was replacing Carrie Manns. Madeline Watt is the new FES cook. She is replacing Lindsay Vaughn. Both of these cooks are doing fantastic in their new positions. They're just taking the reins. It's like they've been doing it their whole lives. They're doing very well. We also hired a dishwasher, Annette Erickson, and she's doing very well as well in her position. Last year, we obtained a food service grant late in the spring. With that grant, we purchased a couple steamers, one for Finlayson Elementary, one for Hinckley High School, to help the quality of the food, presentation, get the kids to eat with their eyes, basically. And the Hinckley Elementary did not have room for a steamer, so they got a hot box so they could hold their food a little bit better and make things smoother for the cooks during that service time. At this time, we're still waiting for one more part for the steamer for the high school. There was something went wrong with not ordering on our end, but ordering on Webstron's end, and they are getting that to us as soon as possible. Students are getting back into the normalcy of using their lunch pin codes to pay for breakfast and lunch with the new program Wordware. Lunch numbers started out kind of small this year, presumably due to paying for the meals. And every day we're increasing more and more students eating meals. A la carte's doing very well. We're bringing in the same numbers as last year. Our vendor services are going well, despite some of the shortages of supplies and the transportation issues we've had with them. But we're making it work. Things are going well. We had 3 weeks of summer school this year, and it went pretty good. We were averaging 130 students during summer school. And that's it for me.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah?
There's been issues with milk in the past, is that no longer?
Once in a while, we'll get a sour milk. And we just can't figure out why. It comes out of the same crate. Like we'll have one that's bad in one crate, and the rest of it's good. And we just can't nail that down.
But it's gotten better.
Yeah, it has gotten better.
Nothing like last year.
No, I hope it doesn't go down that road.
And we do get credit for the bad milk.
Yes,
That-
we do.
If anyone is hungry after they go through the lunch line the first time, either at the elementary or the high school, can they go back for seconds? And if so, are they charged for the seconds?
Yes, they will be charged for a second meal.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions for Sarah? Thank you, Sarah. Next up is the counseling.
So our high school counselors are at conferences, so Green Schoberg is here, but virtually. So I'll turn it over to Green.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. This is Queen Schoberg. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, it sounds like an echo on this end. So at Hinckley Elementary, we are having a safety patrol program up and going. I'd say when I first started with the program, I think there was approximately 26 patrols. This year we have approximately 70 that are participating. We've opened it up to 4th grade. So 4th grade is considered the safety patrols, and they are the standing at the front doors, opening the doors for the students and staff as they're coming in before and after school, and so that gives them an introduction to the program. 5th grade and first year 6th graders are considered crossing guards, and then if they come back their 2nd year in 6th grade as a crossing guard, they are recognized as captains, and captains then have a little more responsibility. They're training in our crossing guards, they're helping lead some of the meetings, planning our field trips. Like Mrs. Scullard had mentioned, we are currently doing a fundraiser right now selling the candy bars. Last year it brought in about $4,000 into the program, which pays for our field trips, any of the equipment that needs to be replaced, the vests that they wear, stop signs, rain gear. So those are some of the things that we were looking at spending the money on this year. And then having Simi, our SRO officer, coming in and meeting the students as well. My feedback that I'm getting from everybody is that it's a positive program for these kids, where they are having an opportunity to practice leadership role and a pretty big responsibility. And I'd like to say all the kids take their roles very seriously. For social skills, we have switched the curriculum from 2nd step. Pre-K is still using the 2nd step curriculum, but K through 6 are using a new curriculum called Be Good People. Bonnie had mentioned our truancy, so we're back on our truancy track and having weekly meetings, sending out letters, making phone calls, scheduling family meetings. And then on the next one, it's our mental health providers that are coming into the school. Like Bonnie said, we have 5 providers. Love the Journey is coming in on Tuesdays and possibly Fridays. TSA is there Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Monarch Counseling is coming in, I believe, on Mondays. Nystrom and Associates will be serving HES and FES. And Rochelle is here Mondays and Wednesdays, and then the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe has 5 different providers to serve for the Native population. One thing that I thought about that isn't on the agenda is that there's talk of starting up the Giving Tree and looking to meet a little earlier this year and seeing if we can kind of get a jump on that program. That's also program that seems to be a growing program within our school. I think that's about everything that I have.
Does anybody have any questions for Corrine? No? Thank you, Corrine.
You're welcome.
Next up is curriculum and assessment report. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Good evening. I think mostly just assessment tonight. I think if you've seen all the numbers, there's a bunch of numbers there. You can see the groups the kids tracked for a 6-year span, if you'd like, over that span. Just focusing on the 2022 numbers. We've got our MCA data on the far right for math, reading, and science. And that data is very, very close to another test that we also take, which below we have the information for the growth for the FAST test, but that FAST test also has a national benchmark, which is just like our MCAs, and those two very much mirror each other. So the percentages that you're seeing for the meets and the exceeds there are also what our kids are showing on the FAST assessment as well. And then you can see, so that's the MCA data, and then if you look at the FAST data that is presented here, that's just the growth, students that are making average, so typical to aggressive growth, and those numbers look a little different. I guess, to me, they can be a little deceiving too as well, just because, yes, we have a lot of kids that are making growth, but we still aren't having those kids reaching the bar to where they're at grade level. So when you think about, yeah, those numbers are much higher, but they're still not making the gains to get them up to where they would be considered a grade level, assessment. And I guess one way, if you're thinking about the numbers and you're not sure, let's just say we have about 70 kids per grade, so every 10% is about 7 kids. So when you look at something, if you see it's a 20% pass rate or whatever, it's 14 out of 70, 40 would be 28 out of 70. So just some idea of some numbers as a grade as a whole. And then all the numbers, as we look at them, look at the district as a whole view, as the whole district of Hinckley-Finlayson. We have the data split up, and if that's something that you would like to see in the future or at a different time, it is split up by building. But for me, when I'm doing the report, I feel like we're talking about the whole district, so we're gonna put all the numbers together and show what are our kids gonna look like, predictor as they get to the high school. So, the data's there. Any questions for me?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So a few years ago, they used to give out incentives when it was around testing time for our kids to strive for high test scores, higher test scores. Is that anything that you think, or that you and the principals think would benefit us? And with that being said, do our students understand how important these tests are, not only to them as an individual, but to our school, to our community? I'm not sure it's emphasized enough that it is a reflection of us. And I think that some kids think, oh, it's just the state test again, we're just gonna go and fill in whatever we want.
I mean,
Unfortunately,
no, and I
be
think
honest.
with all due respect to our former superintendent, I think that's what he preached. So, I mean, changing that from that tone all the way down, I believe, is something that we need to change. I mean, that's my personal view. I think we do have teachers though that do incentivize their kids, like, and that do give them goals, and they do show them like, hey, here's where you're at. Here's where we want you to get to. I don't think all of our teachers do that. I think we can do a better job of everybody doing that.
We do it more with the FAST test versus the MCAs, where they kind of see where they're at, see where they need to be.
Yeah.
And they do a kind of a pre-test, post-test. Do you think, this is what, are a few things you should do to be able to try and reach your goal? And then after the test, they'll give them the results and kind of say, what do you think? Is this where you thought you were gonna be? Did you try your best? Are there strategies you could have used to make that be better? The MCAs are a little bit tougher, and I think we pulled some data the other day that showed the different strands of our MCAs where we're just not even close to meeting.
Sure.
So I think that's the data. No, they don't understand how important it is. They really don't. I don't know how to get them there. We could play some different ideas of how to incentivize that, or how to really help them understand it is an important tool that we use to even figure out where they need to go instructional wise, but.
Right, and don't get me wrong, I don't think that testing is the whole child.
No,
We all know
absolutely.
that, it's not,
But it is a reflection of our community,
right,
totally.
so that was just my questions.
I think those are good questions that need to be asked and thrown around. I think, and to be honest, I know Bonnie and I have thrown those around a lot, like, what could we make MCA Day look like? Could it, what does it look like in the past? What does it look like other places? Like, what is this school doing that's working? Like, would it work for our kids? That's, all like questions we kinda have to answer. At this point, we probably just need to keep playing around and identifying. We don't wanna change it like a great deal every year, but if there's tweaks and things that we can change, how that goes. And that's, I'm sure Kim has some ideas. She's been in that realm for a long time, so, just seeing what she thinks of the high school. The high school is shut down today for half a day, so there's different things. Last year, we didn't shut down the whole high school for half a day because we were able to cover it. But does that make it more of an important thing? I don't know, what do you guys think? You should have a little insight here. You've taken all these steps. What do you feel like has it been incentivized, or have we, you know, put enough on the test, like, hey, is it that really, hey, I'm putting you on the spot,
Speak freely, Jordan.
yeah, I'm asking you.
Sorry, Jordan.
I'm asking you for the truth, because otherwise it's not gonna
They
help
call the
us.
timeout, they're just giving me a little conversing time.
Well, usually it seems like the teachers say like, oh yeah, MCAs are next week, and then that's really it. We just go in, we do whatever we do, and then we forget about them. So I think it is probably for the better that if there are more incentives to it, and that, I think that would work for kids to wanna succeed at that.
I remember one time, I'm not sure if it was 7th or 8th grade, but Amy Grice at the time was working at, I think, you know, your job. And she scared me. She said that this mattered for me getting into college. And even as a 7th and 8th grader, that was what I wanted to do with my life. So I was like so afraid. So I feel like that, not that fearing is a good tactic, but like knowing, I'm sure that doesn't work for everyone also. Yeah, knowing that it's important to at least some people that are like me, that know that that's what they want to do with their life, that would probably, just like letting them know that, I mean, maybe it won't affect you getting to college, but like it is a reflection of you. And I looked at my MCA scores, and it lets you know, like, I don't know, like your college placement and also your readiness for college placed classes in high school. So I just was looking at on my own. So just letting probably the students know that it is important, and to the ones that care about it, that might show a reflection.
Good insight.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Jonathan? Thank you, Jonathan. Next up is communications. Why do I always forget that? I think I've forgotten that 7 months. Okay, board committees, we've had quite a few. Who wants to go first?
I had ECMAC, and it was my first actual meeting. So it was a lot to try and take in, but there is a EC, Central Energy is trying to get their funding to do broadband, which is kind of exciting, and hopefully it goes through. But otherwise, they just kind of reviewed all the classes and all the stuff going on. And if you want a layout of all the classes, I can forward it to you, so.
All the ITV
If you want
classes.
all the ITV classes, then
There's probably quite a bit.
yeah.
Anybody else? We did have teaching and learning. I think Bonnie and Jonathan both, well, maybe not Jonathan, but touched on that meeting. The 3 things I had wrote down was Amplify is in use, and it is a lot of work for the teachers, but after the first year, it sounds like it's not as labor intensive for them. Our science standards, there will be a turnover in the year 24-25 school year, and we will have to do some restaffing at the high school because of that with some of the different classes in our sciences. And math, we are piloting, a few teachers are piloting a new curriculum that's more, like they work together. I don't know how to explain it, Jonathan.
More collaborative working.
More collaborative work within small groups, so. Yes, anybody else want to speak?
We did have a retention meeting, last week.
Yep.
I think the biggest takeaways from that were redetermining like what that committee was going to be for and like what we were gonna focus on. And I think, the main things this time were each building for staff, like, would come up with an activity or an event for all of the staff to participate in. So like Hinckley Elementary would plan an event for all staff in all of the buildings. And the first one they have planned for next week is a hike. So just trying to get all the staff from all of the buildings together, doing different things. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing I think we talked about. And if anybody else can remember more, feel free to put that in there.
We just talked a lot about finding ways to get families involved, engaged, so bringing back some activity nights at the elementary setting. Not sure exactly what it would look like at the high school, but just talk about family engagement and trying to bring our community together again.
All right, anybody else? Now to communications.
And there is none.
No communications. We will keep going on then to the budget calendar.
Okay, so being October and the October 1st enrollment's kind of a big deal for MDE, so that's kind of the number that helps drive a lot of things. So you can see, compared to last year, we are up 7 students. We're at 1,009 as of October 1st. There have been a few more that have come in since then, but that's kind of the state's date to look at enrollment. The budget was built for 1,020 students, so we are a little bit lower than that right now, but students are still coming in. You saw the class sizes that Ms. Scullard and Ms. Hinckley's talked about, and the real big thing that we're looking at least in the district office, is, and we'll talk about a little bit further in the agenda, is the levy between now and December when we do truth and taxation. As of now, and numbers will change and have changed probably even since I've typed this, but as of when I typed this, the maximum levy that the state has right now is that $2,821,836, which is an increase as of now of 14% of what we approved last year, so roughly $347,000. It could go up if the school board decides they wanted to levy the max. There's still a lot of things that could change, and numbers are fluctuating rapidly. If the school board, when we get to December, decided and the numbers do not change, and then we decided to levy the max, it could go up by that much. But I remember Mr. Prater always saying the numbers change. I've seen that already in here the first month since the levy numbers have been released, that they are changing, and we try to get a new update almost weekly. But those are the big things that we're focusing on as we're heading through the rest of the year here, is how that will impact our taxpayers and our district.
Any questions regarding the levy? Moving on to the policies. We have 4 policies. Policy number 522, policy 537, policy 612.1, and policy 806. Would you guys like to accept the policies in one motion, or do you want to discuss and pull any out? All in one? Is that okay, everybody? All in one?
Yep. Yep.
We have in the past.
Yep. Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on the specific policy? If not, then I'm looking at a motion to accept the 3 policies. 4.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is Jaguar Pride. Does anybody have any additions?
Yes, I might get his name wrong, so, Bart Beckman? Okay, he donated the materials and made a plaque for the Hall of Fame committee. The perpetual plaque, I think is what it's called, and he did a really fantastic job. So, just for donating that and taking the time to make it for us.
Anybody else? Next up is some board education, mental health, trauma cases.
just included some statistics that the district has been looking at as far as trauma, ACEs, ways that we're helping to work with kids with some mental health or some things that are going on in their life. Was there any questions on anything that you saw in that document or in that list, or things that we are working on? You heard Corinne talk about a lot, you've heard Bonnie and Kim talk about some of that, but any other questions on some of the things we're working on as far as ACEs or trauma?
Okay, next up is, does anybody have any discussion, questions about the levy notes that have been presented?
I'll go through the two links a little bit. The first one was just our general levies and aid ratio, and the column you want to look at is the 22-23 max levy, and these are the numbers that are changing. And then the column next to that, you can see the aid that's attached by the state as of now. Again, these are changing, and even in their own document that they send to us, they had different numbers, especially when you come down to the SCRED lease, HF edition lease, and the Vision lease. Their numbers aren't matching what Joanne and I had put into the system, and they're not even matching their own document. They came in significantly less. Joanne and I have an email into the state to see why that the numbers aren't even matching in the documents that they have for HF schools. But if you remember correctly, we are putting in for the HF edition lease, we're putting that in 2 times for this year, as it was missed last year, and that was something that we wanted to make sure we hit, getting that back twice. So that's why I have the ×2 by that. But you can see kind of the definitions of where all these levies are and what they are and kind of what the ratio is. Are there any questions on kind of what each ratio or what each levy category is and the funding as of now? I'm learning rapidly myself, and like I said, these numbers are changing weekly, probably all through now through December. Otherwise, the second link is just our community education and debt service. Those ones, the board has always levied the max as we're trying to run the programming the best and match the revenue, so that basic community ed, early childhood, home visiting, etc. We have always tried to levy the max. You can see there's not a lot of aid for these categories, but we are required to accept the entire levy. So that's part of the rules with this category, and a little bit different, where we are required to accept these. And a lot of it's part of our debt service and things like that. But again, I have the definitions down there so you kind of know what each category is. But these numbers, like the first link, are still in flux, but I'll probably have another update for you in November. And then obviously in December, when we get to truths and taxation, I'll have the final recommendations.
Does anybody have any questions for Brian regarding the levies? All right, then we will move on to the election resolution for 2023.
So we have elections set next November, not this November like a lot of schools. We still go in odd years for our school board elections, things like that. So prior to December, we need to procedurally do this so we can get our information off to the county, so they have time to kind of prepare a year ahead of time before we get to next November. So this is just a resolution that we're going to host polling places. You can see in that link where we're going to have it, in the Hinckley-Finlayson Fitness Center lobby and at Finlayson Elementary. But this is just us approving it so we get it off to the county so they can get everything ready, a year ahead of time before we do elections next November.
I do have a question. Would it be more convenient to have that polling place on the first level?
We had that, so the district office made a change with the county last year. It just hadn't been changed, and the reason was there was a lot of, with school still in session, because the people start coming in at 2 o'clock and we still have classes, kids come into the office. We had asked the district office staff to ask the county to switch it to upstairs with an elevator access, and we can have, if need be, students help get community up there so they know where to go. But that was the change. We used to have it on the first floor, but with students still in session or in classes, it was just a lot of back and forth and maybe disruption to the election.
Okay.
Any other questions for Brian? And I'm looking for a motion to approve the election resolution for twenty
I'll make
twenty-three.
that.
Is there a second?
One second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up are first reads for 3 more policies next month.
We're getting through the required ones and the ones that need yearly review, so that's coming quickly. Hopefully we're done with those in the next month or so, but this is just the next round of policies that we have that are required by the state. So just a first read. If there's any discussion, I can take back to the admin team or anything like that before we get to the next month for approval.
I have one question. Does MSBA too, do they, give us any as far as what we should say and stuff for policies, especially for the public data request?
Yep, I'll pull exactly from MSBA. Is what, if we don't have it, I'm pulling the exact language off MSBA, and then, you know, based on board input, admin input, maybe tweaking it a little bit for what fits for Hinckley-Finlayson, but otherwise, if we don't have the policy, I'm pulling the words right off of MSBA. They have all these model policies for us.
Do you try to match the number to theirs?
Yes,
So it's easy to
that's part of our cleanup
cross-reference?
too, is
Mhm.
trying to match us up to the state is a little bit of a process too.
Okay.
Any other questions? Next up is the weekend custodian pay rate.
So in support staff negotiations last year, if you remember, one of the things that was talked about is having a weekend custodian and then paying them. In the past, they had been earning comp time, and at negotiations, one of the things we talked about was, well, they take comp time, they still bring in a sub, and so we're paying the employee for their comp time to take off and bringing in a sub. So we had talked about paying them instead of having to deal with comp time and things like that. But when you kind of calculate the hourly rate, at the $1,600 we had, it came out to be about an hourly average of $7.69, which is below minimum wage and not legal. So I would like to up that up to $22.88, which puts it at about $11 an hour. It's not a high stress, you know, that they're not necessarily going in there and having to fix something if it's wrong. They're just checking on boilers, checking to make sure doors are locked, making sure the coolers are shut, things like that. It's more just traditional building checks. If there was something wrong, you know, they would call the head of maintenance or myself, and then I would call the head of maintenance, but just want to bring that up above minimum wage, so it's legal, but then maybe a little more enticable to staff to want to take that position on.
So are there any questions regarding the weekend custodian pay increase? If not, I'm looking for a motion to accept the weekend custodian pay at a rate of $22.88.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And that is it. I am at the bottom of my agenda. I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 7:48. We're meeting Wednesday with ICS, but we were gonna do a work session to go over what the facilities committee brought forward. Nobody remembers.
The only thing I remember was the MSBA workshop, or is that kind of?